The convoy rolled to a stop in front of Jacob Holdings Tower in Victoria Island. Black SUVs lined the curb. Staff with ID cards and nervous smiles stood in two neat rows. Then the world snapped. A thin woman in a torn brown gown shot through the line of guards. Her hair was messy. A faded handbag bounced against her hip. Before anyone could blink, she reached Jacob, the billionaire everyone feared to delay, and grabbed his hand. Everything froze. Gasps cut through the morning air. One guard cursed under his breath and lunged. Another reached for her arm. Back! Jacob's chief of security, Jerry, barked, lifting an open palm. The men hesitated. Jerry's eyes locked with his boss. Jacob gave a tiny tilt with his chin, his coded sign to wait and watch. Jerry understood. He stepped between the guards and the woman, shoulders broad, voice steady. No one touches her, Jerry said. The staff stared. Drivers stared. Even the fountain seemed to hold its breath. The woman stood close to Jacob, fingers trembling on his wrist. But her voice was calm when she whispered, "I can help you win the $100 million contract." Jacob's eyes narrowed. Noise from the street faded to a quiet hum. The deal. The one every company in Lagos wanted. The one that could make or break his year. He searched her face for a lie, a trick, a clue. "What did you say?" he asked. "I can help you win tonight," she said, still holding his hand. A guard couldn't take it anymore. "Ogre Jerry, one more step," Jerry said, "and you're off my team." The guard stopped cold. For a long second, no one moved. Jacob could feel every stare on his suit, on her torn dress, on their two hands locked together like a secret. He thought of the board meeting, the late nights, the risk he had taken to be the youngest bidder with the boldest plan. He also thought of something darker, graves made of wind and sky, the plane crash that took his wife and son. He had learned that the line between order and chaos could vanish in a breath. "Come with me," Jacob said at last. 100 mouths fell open at once. Jerry's eyebrow twitched. He turned, made a path, and the guards parted like a gate. The woman kept her head down but didn't let go of Jacob's sleeve as they passed the rows of stunned staff. Someone dropped a folder. Papers fluttered across the marble like frightened birds. Inside, the lobby smelled of polish and cool lemon. Gold letters on the wall read, "Jacob Holdings Building Tomorrow." The woman's worn slippers slapped the floor in soft, slow beats. Jacob led her to a private elevator. Jerry stepped in with them, pressed 10, and stood like a wall between them and the world. The doors closed. The elevator hummed up. "What is your name?" Jacob asked. Jerry said nothing. His eyes were on the panel, but Jacob knew he was reading the woman's every move in the mirror. The floor numbers lit up. 4, 5, 6. At 10, the doors opened to a hushed hallway lined with art and glass. Inside Jacob's office, Lagos stretched in every direction, water glittering at the edge like a promise. The room was cool and strong and clean, built for decisions that shaped cities. Jacob turned to the woman. "You said you can help me win. Is that?" She nodded. "How?" She looked at Jerry first, as if weighing his shadow. Then she looked back at Jacob, eyes steady and bright in her tired face. "Before I tell you, I need you to lock that door and give us privacy for 2 minutes." Jerry's jaw tightened. He looked at Jacob. "It's fine," Jacob said. 2 minutes. Jerry stepped out, closed the door, and stood guard in the hall. The room fell very still. "Talk," Jacob said. She let the old handbag slide from her shoulder to the floor. She reached for the edges of her gown. The fabric, once blue, was now a sad grey-brown. Slowly, she unbuttoned the front seam and slipped it off her shoulders. Underneath was a fitted black sheath, dress, simple, smooth, and powerful. She set the gown over a chair and touched her crooked wig. With a gentle tug, she lifted it off. Under it, sleek, natural hair fell to her shoulders, neat and styled. She straightened her back. The change was like sunrise over the ocean. She no longer looked small. She no longer looked lost. She looked like a woman used to being seen, measured, and obeyed. Jacob felt his chest tighten. He knew that posture. He knew that face from front pages and nighttime charts. It couldn't be. "I need you to listen without panic," she said softly. "I came like this because I wanted to see your people's hearts. I wanted to see yours." His mouth went dry. The wall clock ticked once. "Who are you?" Jacob asked, though his mind already raced to the answer. She took one step closer, held his gaze, and spoke her name like a stamp across history. My name is Monica Williams. The room tilted. Every headline he had read, every rumor, every boardroom whisper of the woman who could move markets and calm storms in the same breath. Monica Williams, CEO of Apex Treasury Group. The gatekeeper, the kingmaker, the silent vote behind tonight's contract. You walked through my guards, dressed like a woman most people ignore, she said. I needed to know if your house is built on fear or on respect. I saw your sign to Jerry. You didn't let them throw me out before I spoke. That told me what I needed. Why me? Jacob asked, voice low. Because Lagos needs builders who don't crush the weak, she said. Because your plan is brave and real, and because you lost something and you didn't let it turn you cruel. Jacob felt the elevator of his heart drop and rise all at once. He thought of his little boy's sneakers by the door, still tied, still waiting. He swallowed hard. What do you want in exchange? He asked. Monica smiled, not with softness, but with certainty. I want proof that you can lead without masks. You will revise one clause in your bid. You will open a pathway for small vendors in Ajagunle and Yaba to access your supply chain. You will make timelines public. If you agree, I will stand for you tonight. And you will win. Jacob stared at her, the city bright behind her shoulders. He heard distant phones ring. He heard the sea. He nodded once, almost a bow. Done? A knock came at the door, sharp, urgent. Jerry's voice followed, tight and controlled. Sir, we have a problem. The board is in the lobby. Someone leaked that a homeless woman touched you. Reporters are gathering downstairs. And sir, your rival's CFO is here. He wants a meeting now. Monica lifted her chin, eyes turning toward the door. Jacob's pulse kicked. Do we open? Jerry asked. Jacob looked from the door to Monica, to the wig lying like a secret on the chair, to the torn gown folded like a shed skin. He took a breath. Open, he said. The handle turned. The door began to swing, and the first face through the gap made Jacob's heart stop. The door creaked open, and the first person Jacob saw was Andrew Cole, the CFO of Sterling Dynamics, his fiercest rival. Andrew's sharp suit was as crisp as his smirk. Behind him, reporters tried to push forward, flashes popping like fireworks, before Jerry blocked the gap with his broad shoulders. Andrew's eyes swept the room, pausing when he saw Monica. His grin widened. Well, what a surprise. I thought I heard a rumor about a homeless woman holding your hand, Jacob. Now I see it's true. He chuckled, low and cutting. Quite the scandal. Imagine what the board will say. Jacob stiffened, but Monica's expression didn't flicker. She simply crossed her arms, standing tall, no trace of the shabby gown she'd shed minutes earlier. Andrew continued, circling like a shark that had scented blood. You want to win tonight's contract? You can't. The board will never back a man who lets beggars walk into his tower. Meanwhile, Sterling Dynamics is ready. Our bid is flawless. When I leave this room, Jacob Holdings is finished. For a moment, Jacob's chest burned with anger. But before he could respond, Monica stepped forward. Andrew, she said. Her voice cut through the room like glass sliding across marble. Andrew stopped. His smirk faltered. Monica? Jacob blinked. Andrew's tone carried something Jacob had never heard before: fear. Yes, Monica said, her chin high. Monica Williams, do you remember me now? Andrew's face drained of color. Everyone in Lagos's financial circles knew her name. She was the woman Sterling had tried to sabotage years ago, the one who turned their schemes into dust with a single press conference. Rumor said she'd vanished abroad. No one expected her to appear here. You're backing him? Andrew asked, his voice dropping. Monica's gaze was cold. If you want to win tonight, Andrew, prepare to lose. I'm standing with Jacob Holdings. Silence swallowed the room. Even Jerry, battle-hardened and stone-faced, shifted his stance slightly. Andrew tried to laugh it off, but the sound cracked. You can't be serious. A woman who walks in off the street, pretending to be— I don't pretend, Monica said. She pulled a slim folder from her handbag and tossed it onto Jacob's desk. Papers fanned out, stamped with Apex Treasury's seal. I control half of tonight's decision-making panel. If you doubt me, check the signatures. Jacob picked up one of the papers. His heart thundered. The panel chair's signature. Apex Treasury's official endorsement. Real. Andrew's smirk vanished completely. He stepped back, his confidence leaking out of him. This changes nothing. You still can't. Monica took a step closer, her eyes blazing. Leave, Andrew. If you try to smear Jacob's name with lies, you'll regret it. Tonight, Lagos will see who truly builds and who only destroys. Jerry moved forward, hand on the door. You heard her. Andrew looked from Jacob to Monica, hatred burning in his eyes. This isn't over, he spat. Before storming out, Jerry slammed the door shut, blocking out the noise of reporters and murmurs from staff gathering outside. The office fell still again. Jacob turned to Monica, still holding the folder, his fingers trembling. Why? Why are you helping me? Monica's face softened. Just a little, because the city needs more than businessmen chasing power. It needs leaders with heart. You didn't throw me away when you thought I was nothing. That told me who you are. For the first time in years, Jacob felt something stir, something he thought he had buried with his wife and son. It wasn't just hope for the contract. It was something deeper, a sense of connection, of trust. But before he could speak, Jerry's phone buzzed. He stepped aside, listening, then looked up, tense. Sir, Jerry said, the board is demanding to see you immediately. They've heard too much noise already. They want answers before tonight's bidding. Jacob exhaled slowly. Of course they do. Monica touched his arm gently. Let them see me, she said. Let them see the truth. Jacob studied her, her steady eyes, her quiet strength. He nodded. Jerry opened the door again, leading the way to the boardroom. As they walked down the hall, Jacob could feel the weight of whispers following them. Staff pressed back against the walls, their faces pale with disbelief. The woman they had nearly thrown out was walking side by side with their boss, her presence commanding the floor. At the boardroom doors, Jerry pushed them open. Inside, 12 members of the board sat around the polished mahogany table. Their faces were sharp with suspicion. At the head, Mr. Olumide, the chairman, cleared his throat. Jacob, we've heard troubling things this morning. Care to explain? The air was heavy. Jacob opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Monica stepped forward. My name is Monica Williams, she said clearly, and I am here because Jacob is the only man in this city worthy of tonight's contract. Gasps rippled around the table. Several members leaned forward, whispering her name. Mr. Olumide froze, his pen slipping from his hand. The silence that followed was thunderous, and then, from the back of the room, a voice spoke up sharp, mocking, and familiar. Well, if it isn't Monica Williams, I was wondering when you'd crawl out of hiding. Jacob turned, his blood running cold. Standing by the window, arms folded, was a man he never expected to see again. The man who once betrayed him. Jacob's chest tightened the moment. His eyes met the figure by the window. Tall, broad-shouldered, and unmistakably confident, the man stepped forward with a slow clap that dripped with mockery. Jacob Anderson, the man said smoothly. It's been a long time. The name rolled off his tongue with a familiarity that felt like poison. Jacob's throat went dry. His mind raced back to late nights in cramped offices, two young men building a company from nothing. Back then, he had trusted this man with everything, dreams, secrets, even his family. Michael, Jacob whispered. Michael Adeyemi, his former co-founder, his friend turned enemy. The man who had sold Jacob's designs to rivals years ago, almost bankrupting him. The betrayal had burned so deep that Jacob swore he'd never forgive him. Now here Michael stood, in the very boardroom of Jacob Holdings, like he belonged. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at Jacob, others at Michael, as though unsure whose side to lean toward. Michael's smile was a blade. Don't look so shocked. Did you really think you could keep me out of this game forever? Lagos is too small for your kind of arrogance. Jacob clenched his fists. What are you doing here? Simple, Michael replied, strolling toward the table. Sterling Dynamics needed someone who understands how you think. Who better than me, your old partner? He chuckled. Andrew Cole listens when I speak. He knows the board trusts my strategies. The revelation hit Jacob like a hammer. Andrew hadn't come here alone, he had Michael feeding him every move. Monica's eyes narrowed. So you're the shadow behind Sterling's bid? Michael turned to her with a smirk. Ah, Monica Williams, the prodigy who thought she could fight the system. Tell me, How does it feel crawling back into the spotlight after vanishing all these years? Monica didn't flinch. Better than stabbing your partner in the back. A ripple of shock moved around the table. Michael's jaw tightened, but he recovered quickly. Let's not waste time, Michael said, facing the board. Jacob Holdings is finished. His judgment is clouded, his company fragile. If you side with him tonight, you'll regret it. And the late, Jacob took a step forward, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. My company stands because we don't cheat, we don't betray, we build. And tonight, with Apex Treasury at our side, we'll prove it. Several board members exchanged glances. The tension was a living thing, buzzing like electricity in the air. Michael laughed coldly. Fine words, Jacob. But words don't win contracts, power does. And you've already lost yours. At that moment, Jerry's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, his face paling. He leaned toward Jacob and whispered, Sir, Andrew just leaked a video. Reporters are outside playing it already. Jacob's gut sank. What video? Jerry hesitated. A clip of Monica grabbing your hand at the entrance. Edited to look scandalous. They're painting her as a desperate street beggar you smuggled in to cheat the bid. Gasps echoed around the boardroom. Mr. Olamide banged the table. Is this true? Monica stepped forward, her voice ringing out like a bell. Lies. Do you think I'd risk my reputation to play games? You all know me. Apex Treasury doesn't bend for corruption. But the board was already murmuring, doubt clouding their eyes. Michael smiled, sensing blood. See? Already the cracks show. Tonight's contract is mine. Jacob's heart hammered, but he forced himself to breathe. This was it, the moment everything could collapse. He looked at Monica, then at the board. Give me one chance, Jacob said firmly. Tonight, at the bid presentation, let Monica speak. Let her prove the truth in front of everyone. If she fails, I'll step down from this company forever. It has now in full. The board members froze, staring. A gamble that bold could not be ignored. Mr. Olumide leaned back, his face unreadable. After a long silence, he nodded slowly. Very well. Tonight, she speaks. But if this backfires, Jacob, you're finished. Michael's eyes glittered. You're digging your own grave. Jacob ignored him. He turned to Monica. Can you do this? Monica met his gaze without wavering. I've fought worse men than Michael. Trust me. Her words were quiet, but they carried the weight of iron. The board adjourned, filing out with heavy expressions. Jerry escorted them out, but not before shooting Michael a glare sharp enough to cut stone. When the room was finally empty, Jacob slumped against the wall, exhausted. I don't know if I've just saved us or destroyed us. Monica moved closer, her hand brushing his arm gently. Courage always feels like that. But Jacob, there's something you need to know before tonight. Jacob straightened, frowning. What is it? Monica's lips trembled for the first time. Sterling isn't just using Michael. They've uncovered something from your past. Something they plan to expose tonight to ruin you. Jacob's blood turned cold. What do you mean? Monica's eyes glistened, and her voice dropped to a whisper. It's about your family. The words stabbed Jacob's chest. His late wife, his lost son. He had buried that pain years ago, but now Michael's mocking smile flashed in his mind. If Sterling had touched that wound, if they had twisted the truth, then Jacob wasn't just fighting for a contract, he was fighting for his name, his legacy, his very soul. And as the clock ticked toward the evening bid, one thing became clear. The war was only beginning. The evening shadows stretched long across Lagos as Jacob and Monica prepared for the bidding event. The city outside the glass towers glittered, but inside Jacob's chest, darkness churned. Her words, "It's about your family," echoed like a curse. He turned to her, his face tight. Monica, what do you mean? My wife and son are gone. What more could they use against me? Monica hesitated. For the first time since she stormed into his life, her confidence seemed shaken. She lowered her voice. Jacob, I didn't vanish all those years ago because of business alone. Sterling tried to destroy me too. They planted spies everywhere. And one of those spies was close to your family. Jacob's throat dried. What are you saying? She looked him in the eye. Sterling claims your son never died. The room tilted. Jacob grabbed the edge of his desk to steady himself. Memories flashed hospital corridors, the sound of beeping machines, the coffin lowered into the earth. He had mourned his boy Daniel for years. "That's impossible," Jacob whispered, shaking his head. "I buried him with my own hands." Monica's voice was soft, yet firm. "I'm telling you what they plan to announce. They'll claim Daniel was taken abroad, hidden by people who hated you, and that you used money to cover it up. Whether true or not, it's enough to tear your company apart." A silence heavier than steel filled the office. Jerry entered just then, his sharp eyes moving from Jacob to Monica. "What happened?" he asked, sensing the tension. "Sterling wants to drag Daniel into this," Jacob muttered. His voice cracked on his son's name. Jerry's jaw tightened. "Then we don't give them the chance. We fight back first. We control the story." But Jacob shook his head. "This isn't just business anymore, Jerry. This is blood." Monica stepped closer. "Jacob, listen. Tonight isn't only about contracts. It's about truth. If Sterling dares mention your family, we need evidence stronger than their lies." Jacob's mind raced. For years he had avoided reopening that wound, afraid the pain would consume him. Now he had no choice. He looked at Jerry. "Get me everything from Daniel's case. Hospital records, police reports, burial documents, everything." Jerry nodded briskly and left, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Monica placed a hand on Jacob's shoulder. "I know this is unbearable. But sometimes the deepest scars become the sharpest weapons. If you can face this, Sterling can't win." Jacob met her gaze. "And if their story is true," her lips pressed into a thin line, "then you'll face it with me. You're not alone anymore." Hours later, the Grand Hall of Lagos shimmered with gold chandeliers and polished marble floors. The bidding ceremony was already buzzing. Billionaires in tailored suits mingled with government officials, journalists, and business sharks. Cameras flashed as Jacob entered with Monica at his side. Murmurs rose instantly, half curious, half scandalized. "There she is, the homeless woman." "No, that's Monica Williams. What game is Jacob playing?" Jerry flanked them, eyes scanning every corner like a hawk. At the front, the chairman of the bidding committee, Chief Adeleke, stood ready. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, "tonight we decide the future of Nigeria's largest energy project. 2 companies remain, Sterling Dynamics and Jacob Holdings." The crowd hushed. Andrew Cole rose first. His smile was razor-sharp. "Before we begin, the people deserve the truth about the man sitting across from me." He gestured toward Jacob. "This morning, he paraded a homeless woman into his tower. A woman he now claims is Monica Williams. But what if I told you Jacob Anderson's secrets run deeper than lies about business?" Gasps echoed. Cameras swung toward Jacob. Andrew leaned forward, voice heavy with venom. "Years ago, Jacob's son supposedly died. But new evidence suggests otherwise. The boy is alive, hidden abroad, while Jacob covered it up. This is the man you want handling billions." Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted. Board members murmured. Flashes went wild. Jacob's pulse roared in his ears. He was seconds from collapse. Then Monica stood. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Enough." The hall froze. Even Andrew's smirk faltered. "You think lies can bury truth?" Monica's eyes swept the room. "I am Monica Williams, and I stand here with proof that Jacob Holdings deserves this contract. As for his son, Sterling is exploiting a man's grief to poison your judgment." She raised the folder, thick with documents Jerry had delivered just in time. "Here are the hospital reports, police investigations, and burial certificates. Facts, not rumors. Sterling Dynamics should be ashamed." As a deferent, she slapped the folder onto the table. The sound cracked like thunder. Chief Adeleke picked it up, scanning quickly, his brow furrowing. Other committee members leaned in. The room began to shift uncertainty, turning into murmurs of doubt against Sterling. Andrew sputtered. This doesn't mean..." Monica cut him off. "It means your tricks won't work. But since you love scandals so much, perhaps the public should also know about Sterling's offshore accounts." She pulled another sheet from her handbag, her eyes blazing. Hidden money siphoned from past contracts. A stunned silence followed. Andrew's face drained of color. Michael, watching from the corner, clenched his jaw, fury burning in his eyes. Jacob looked at Monica, astonished. She had just flipped the storm on its head. But before relief could settle, Michael stepped forward, his voice cold. "You think this is over?" "No, Jacob. You still don't know the full truth." The room stiffened again. Jacob's heart lurched. Michael's eyes gleamed as he leaned closer. His words a dagger meant only for Jacob's ears. "Your son is alive." The tension in the Grand Hall of Lagos was unbearable. Reporters whispered, camera flashes rained like lightning, and board members shuffled nervously as Andrew Cole and Michael Adeyemi's lies hung heavy in the air. Monica had just thrown down the folder of proof, exposing Sterling Dynamics' corruption, and the room waited for the final word. Chief Adeleke cleared his throat. "After reviewing the documents presented, the committee has decided." He paused, letting the silence swell. Then his words dropped like thunder. "The energy contract goes to Jacob Holdings." The hall erupted. Some gasped in shock, others applauded. Reporters scrambled out to break the news. Jacob closed his eyes, breathing deeply as relief and disbelief crashed over him like a storm. He turned to Monica. She gave him a small, steady smile. For the first time in years, Jacob felt something he thought he had buried forever: hope. That night, Jacob sat alone in his office, staring out at the glittering skyline. His wife and little boy had died in a plane crash just 2 years ago, and no amount of business success had filled the hole they left. The grief had nearly destroyed him, but Monica's presence stirred something inside him. She, too, knew the language of loss. 4 years earlier, she had lost her husband and only daughter in a road accident. She had buried her heart along with them, never imagining she could feel again. Now, as they sat across from each other, silence wrapped around them. Not the heavy kind of silence, but the soft, understanding, one born from shared pain. "Jacob," Monica said quietly, her eyes shimmering. "The world thinks power is built on money and pride, but it's really built on scars and how we carry them." Jacob swallowed hard. "Sometimes I wonder why God left me alive when he took them." Her hand brushed his. "Maybe so you could find someone who understands." Their eyes locked, and in that fragile moment, the walls both had built began to crumble. 2 weeks later, Jacob drove through the palm-lined streets of Banana Island, his heart pounding. Monica's mansion stood like a jewel by the water, glowing with warm lights. He had rehearsed his words 1,000 times. But when Monica welcomed him inside, smiling in her navy gown, everything vanished. Over dinner, laughter softened the air. She told him stories of her daughter, and he spoke of his little boy. They laughed, then cried, then laughed again. By the time the night wore down, Jacob couldn't hold back anymore. He rose from his seat, walked around the table, and dropped to one knee. Monica gasped, covering her mouth. "Monica," Jacob's voice trembled. "I thought my heart was buried with my wife and son, but you've shown me it can beat again. You fought by my side when everyone else doubted me. Will you make me whole again? Will you marry me?" Tears spilled from Monica's eyes. She had promised herself never to love again, but here was Jacob, raw and vulnerable, kneeling before her. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes, Jacob, I will." The words rang like music. Jacob slipped the ring onto her finger, his own tears blurring the sight. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in years, both felt alive. But love is always tested. News broke weeks later that Jacob had used Monica's influence to secure the energy contract. The headlines screamed betrayal. Rivals whispered that he planned to dump her after using her name. Investors panicked. The board demanded explanations. Jacob sat in his office, fists clenched, anger choking him. "This is Michael again. He won't stop until he destroys me." Monica entered quietly, her eyes calm. "Then let me fight this one." Before Jacob could protest, she called a press conference. Cameras flashed as she stood behind a podium, elegant and unshaken. "They say my fiancé used me," she began. "But the truth is, I chose him. I saw a man with integrity when others tried to buy my silence. If standing with him is a crime, then I am guilty." Her words sliced through the lies. The hall erupted with applause, reporters rushing to print the story of a woman defending her man. Jacob, watching from the side, felt his heart swell with pride. He had expected doubt, but Monica gave him loyalty. 3 months later, the city shook with their wedding. The cathedral bells rang as Jacob stood at the altar in a tailored white suit, his eyes misty as Monica walked down the aisle in a flowing ivory gown. Business moguls, governors, and foreign dignitaries filled the pews. The world watched as two broken souls joined in love. When Jacob lifted her veil and kissed her, the hall erupted in thunderous cheers. For once, he didn't feel like a billionaire or a tycoon. He felt like the luckiest man alive, but their joy was soon tested again. Months passed with no sign of pregnancy. Doctors ran tests, and the verdict crushed Monica. She was told she had no uterus. She broke down in Jacob's arms. "I'm useless to you now. I can't give you children." But Jacob only held her tighter. "Monica, I didn't marry you for children. I married you because you're my life. If we never have kids, I'll still thank God every day that I have you." His words steadied her, but outside their walls, whispers grew cruel. Rivals mocked them publicly. "The billionaire's wife is barren." Monica bore it silently until Jacob took her abroad for a second opinion. There, the truth came out. The first diagnosis was wrong. She was perfectly capable of bearing children. Hope returned like sunlight after a storm. 5 years after their wedding, Monica felt the first kicks of life inside her. When the doctor finally placed twin baby boys into her arms, Johnson and Joshua, tears streamed down her cheeks. Jacob, standing by her side, trembled as he held his sons for the first time. Their tiny fingers curled around his, fragile yet full of promise. He sank into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. "I thought I'd never be a father again. I thought God had forgotten me. But he gave me double." Monica leaned against him, exhausted but glowing. "Our prayers have become reality." The room filled with the cries of newborns. But to Jacob, it was the sweetest music in the world. The man who once lost everything now held his future in his arms. And as he kissed Monica's forehead and whispered a trembling thank you, he knew their story wasn't just about business or survival. It was about love born from ashes, a love that had survived lies, blackmail, and grief, only to rise stronger than ever. The twins, Johnson and Joshua, grew like sunlight in Jacob and Monica's lives. Their cries filled the once quiet mansion, their laughter turned marble halls into playgrounds, and their tiny footsteps echoed through Banana Island like a promise of tomorrow. Every evening, Jacob would sit in the nursery, watching his sons sleep. Sometimes tears slipped down his cheeks as he whispered, "Daddy will never leave you." For years, he had lived in shadows of loss, but now, with Monica by his side, he finally felt whole. Monica, too, found healing in motherhood. The pain of losing her husband and daughter still lingered, but the twins gave her a chance to breathe again, to love without fear. She often looked at Jacob and whispered, "God restored us in double measure." But outside their haven, the world had not forgotten their enemies. Michael Adeyemi had grown desperate. After the contract loss and Monica's press conference exposing Sterling's offshore accounts, his reputation collapsed. Investors pulled out. Andrew Cole, furious, cut ties with him, leaving him bankrupt. Yet Michael was not a man who accepted defeat easily. He began feeding tabloids more stories about Jacob, claiming corruption and abuse of power. For months, the headlines grew ugly again. Jacob Holdings under scrutiny. Billionaire empire built on lies. Jacob sighed heavily one morning, tossing the newspaper onto the table. "It's Michael again. He won't stop until I'm ruined." Monica poured his tea calmly, her voice like steady fire. "Then let's not run from this. Let's end it once and for all." She leaned closer. "We've lived in defense too long. It's time we tell our story, not just react to theirs." That evening, Jacob and Monica appeared together in a televised interview. Sitting side by side, their hands clasped, they faced millions of Nigerians. "We have nothing to hide," Jacob said firmly. "Yes, we've known grief. Yes, we've faced lies, but every stone thrown at us has only built the foundation of who we are." Monica added softly, "We are not perfect. We are simply two people who lost everything and found healing together. That is our truth." The interview went viral. Hashtags of support flooded social media. Nigerians, often skeptical of their billionaires, saw in Jacob and Monica not just wealth, but humanity. For the first time, they were not figures of scandal. They were symbols of resilience. Meanwhile, the government opened a fresh investigation into Sterling dynamics. Monica's evidence of offshore accounts triggered audits. Within months, Andrew Cole was indicted, and Sterling's empire crumbled. As for Michael, the man who once mocked Jacob in his own boardroom, his arrogance finally caught up with him. The courts found him guilty of fraud, and he was sentenced to prison. The day the judgment was announced, Jacob sat silently in his office, staring at the news ticker. Jerry, ever loyal, stood beside him. "You should be celebrating, sir. Justice has been served." But Jacob shook his head slowly. "I don't celebrate another man's fall, Jerry, especially not one who was once my brother." He rose, walking to the window where Lagos lights sparkled like scattered stars. "All I ever wanted was peace. Now, finally, maybe we'll have it." Years passed, and Jacob Holdings grew into a global brand. Monica, though she could have retired comfortably, chose to merge her apex treasury firm with Jacob's empire, creating one of Africa's most powerful conglomerates. Together, they redefined corporate leadership, not as ruthless tycoons, but as visionaries rooted in compassion. Yet their greatest pride was not their wealth, it was their twins. At age 6, Johnson and Joshua were already mischievous whirlwinds of energy. Johnson loved books, asking endless questions about the world, while Joshua preferred building towers of blocks taller than himself, laughing when they fell. One Sunday afternoon, Jacob and Monica took them to visit the graves of their lost loved ones. The boys, too young to fully understand, held their parents' hands as they stood in silence before the marble stones. "These were the people who gave us life," Monica whispered, "and because of them, we are stronger today." Jacob knelt beside the graves, his sons leaning into him. "One day," he said softly, "you'll know this. Pain does not end us, it shapes us." Their story soon became an inspiration beyond Nigeria. Universities invited Monica to speak on leadership, while Jacob was honored with humanitarian awards for funding schools and hospitals. Together, they launched the Anderson Williams Foundation, dedicated to supporting widows, orphans, and accident survivors, mirroring the tragedies that once shaped them. At the foundation's opening gala, Jacob stood on stage, Monica beside him, their twins seated proudly in the front row. His voice broke as he said, "We were once broken. Tonight, we stand whole, not because we never fell, but because we chose to rise again." The audience, filled with presidents, CEOs, and ordinary citizens, rose in a thunderous ovation. But even in triumph, life tested them in small ways. Rumors occasionally resurfaced, mocking their past struggles with infertility. Jacob, however, never allowed shame to take root again. He would laugh softly and reply, "If being mocked for my wife's strength is the price for my family's joy, I'll pay it 1,000 times." Monica, equally unshaken, once told a journalist, "People think love is about perfection. It isn't. Love is about standing when the storm has knocked everything else down." Her words became quoted across social media, reminding countless couples that resilience was the truest form of wealth. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Jacob surprised Monica with a quiet dinner by the sea. No flashing cameras, no reporters, just the two of them under the stars, their boys asleep back home. He held her hand, his eyes moist. "Monica, when I first knelt in your mansion, I thought I was asking for love. But what I found in you was life itself. Thank you for walking through fire with me." Monica smiled, tears glistening. "And thank you for proving that ashes can bloom into gardens." They leaned into each other as waves kissed the shore, their hearts finally at peace. Years later, when Johnson and Joshua graduated from university, Jacob sat in the front row, his hair now silver, but his eyes proud. Monica leaned against him, her hand resting on his. "Look at them," she whispered. "Our miracle." Jacob nodded slowly, tears threatening. "Our legacy." And in that moment, surrounded by family, achievements, and memories of battles fought and won, Jacob knew the truth. Wealth fades, power shifts, but love tested, scarred, and unbreakable endures forever. What is your view about this story? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.